Continuing on with an exploration of meta-stories, we come to Beauty and the Beast, which, like Cain and Abel, is a story that's repeated time and time again in books, TV, film, and even within our own lives. In the most archaic sense of the story, this is the union of the feminine with the masculine to create a more perfect whole. It's seen countless times within history in terms of symbology, most notably probably with the yin and the yang. So the two halves are perfectly merged to form a circle, but also we have small elements of one within the other. And while that is an interesting element to the Beauty and the Beast story, and one that has carried forward and sustained, it's not the one that I want to focus on today. I want to focus more on the aspect which is similar to the George and the Dragon story. And we can take that the George and the Dragon story is where the man is the active character, whereas in Beauty and the Beast, it's the female who's the active character. And before going any further, it's important to understand the story of Beauty and the Beast and what that fairy tale told. And really, when we're talking about Beauty and the Beast, there's a story which preceded it, which is the Pig King. The story of the Pig King is that there were a king and a queen who were unable to have children, until one night the queen fell asleep in the garden and 3 fairies visited her, and they bequeathed her a son. But the 3rd fairy gave the condition that the son would be a pig until he married 3 times. He was raised as their son, as a prince, and was taught to talk and act like a human. However, he would still have these occasional pig-like tendencies, namely rolling around in the mud and the dirt. And it got to the point where he wanted to marry. So he went to his mother and asked her if she could find a wife for him. So they found a poor woman who had 3 daughters. The eldest daughter was persuaded to marry the pig. She schemed and planned to stab the pig as soon as she was in the bedchamber with him. However, during the night, the eldest daughter was stabbed by the pig's hooves and died. It moved on to the 2nd daughter. She too was persuaded to come and marry the pig, and the same fate befell her. And finally it came to the 3rd daughter, who willingly married the pig, was kind and respectful towards him, survived that first night, and eventually was shown a secret by the pig. He was able to shed his pigskin, and a handsome young prince was revealed underneath. The classic end to that story. But the young prince would always put the pigskin back on during the day. Even when he was with his parents, he would put the pigskin back on. Until one day, his wife revealed to the king and the queen the secret, and told them to come to the bedchamber and watch as he took off the pigskin. Upon seeing that, the king took it, destroyed the pigskin, abdicated, and made the prince king. The links then between that story and Beauty and the Beast are fairly clear. Beauty and the Beast begins with Beauty's father stealing a rose from the Beast's garden, and he is imprisoned as punishment, and he's only set free when his position is traded by Beauty. She then goes to live with the Beast in a beautiful mansion, a palace, and she has everything that she could possibly want. But she is not fulfilled with any of that, and eventually asked to be returned and go back to her family. The Beast allows her, with the promise that she will return in 2 months. Beauty willingly returns to go back to the Beast, finds him sick, nurses him back to full health, agrees to marry him. At that point, the Beast transforms into a handsome young prince. They marry, live happily ever after, with all their wants taken care of. As you can see, they share a lot of similarities, namely the beastliness personified of the men. They are willingly loved, and upon that they are transformed, and then they live happily ever after. Those are essentially the core elements within the story, regardless of the embellishment and the mysticality that is added into both of those stories. So the first and probably most striking element is the fact that, well, perhaps this isn't so mysterious to some, but why the man is represented as a pig in The Pig King, and why the man is represented as a beast in Beauty and the Beast. Some might have very clear answers as to why that is the case. But if we look more symbolically and what the underlying philosophy of that is, it's really alluding to what Thomas Hobbes then developed in Leviathan later on, which is that man is civilized by society. And he starts out as a brute and a beast, and it is only with the influence of society that it becomes somewhat tolerable and acceptable and, more importantly, productive. And the counter to that is set up by Rousseau in On the Social Contract, which is that man starts off pure and is corrupted by society. And that's another philosophy and another dichotomy that's meditated on frequently by authors, is what is the true nature of humanity. The next aspect is the aspect of willingness. And it's important to note that in The Pig King, it is the pig who asks his mother, "It's time for me to marry. I want to be saved." And in The Beast, it's the Beast proposing to Beauty. He too wants to be saved, and he's asking her to save him. And then it's a willingness on the part of the woman. The 3rd sister in The Pig King, she does not go there with the same intent that her other sisters had. She does not want to kill and eradicate what is before her, but she wants to take control of it, to transform it, the same way that beauty does. The beast could have denied beauty going back and seeing her family, but he didn't. He let her go on the condition that willingly in 2 months' time she returned to him. And it's that willingness that is so crucial from both sides. It's the men asking to be saved, and it's the woman consenting to do so. The woman is the agent of change. She's active. And that's why I find this a much more compelling story than George and the Dragon. Because George and the Dragon, he goes out, he slays the dragon, and then he saves the princess. Or he saves the damsel in distress, the maiden, the virgin, whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, nothing really changes for the woman. However, in the Beauty and the Beast story, we have the female character, 1, overcoming her fears, 2, overcoming perhaps her prejudices, and then it's the woman having the capability to take on the challenge and see it through, which is not always the case when this story plays out in literature. And finally, we see the idea of the ultimate reward, both for the characters of Beauty, but also for the Beast. And the ultimate reward and the point in which they live happily ever after is not when they have all these material possessions and riches, but it's when they have each other. So it's also introducing the idea that the highest value is love and family. Again, an idea which is explored countless times in literature. An excellent further examination of this is actually in The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Leo Tolstoy. And that's, in all of Tolstoy's works, he's really examining what it means to live a good life. And it's not always that he arrives solely at love and family, although that certainly presents a very strong element within Tolstoy's work. But The Death of Ivan Ilyich really examines that in microscopic detail. And he looks at the idea of material possessions. He looks at the idea of dedicating yourself to work, and he also looks at the idea of serving family and serving love. And I would say that those three are probably the most recognizable purposes that people see, particularly in modern society. It's the debate between, is it work, is it material possessions, or is it family? And we see that material possessions often falls by the wayside, although in our own psyches it still plays a very prominent role. But the most serious debate is really taken between work and family. And in the traditional stories and in most classical literature, it's family and love which comes out on top as opposed to work. And I think that is a subject which is best explored by Tolstoy in The Death of Ivan Ilyich. So really there are 3 core elements within the story. At the base, man is a brute who needs to be civilized. There needs to be willingness on the part of the female and the male character, and also capability on the part of the female. And thirdly, that the highest achievable good is love and family, and to unite in that regard. In classics, a great example of the Beauty and the Beast story is within Anna Karenina by Tolstoy. We see that Anna tries to be the beauty figure for Vronsky, but she does not have the capacity to do so. However, that's contrasted against Kitty and Levin, and Kitty is able to, as it were, tame Levin. She gives him purpose, she gives him happiness. He loses his nihilistic tendencies and sees that there is a reason to live. There is a way to be happy in this life, and that is through Kitty and her being a capable actor. One of the best examples of this is when Levin's brother is dying, and Levin goes there and he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know whether he should look at his brother, whether he should look away, whether he should move quietly around, whether he should stomp about. He's so focused on himself, whereas Kitty just gets to work. She doesn't need to overthink things. She sees an objective, she sees something that needs to be done, and she just does it. And that saves him. That saves him in that situation, but it's a metaphor for their wider life. We see it also in the Count of Monte Cristo, where the Count is essentially saved by Mercedes. He turns into a beast without her when he loses her at the start, but also when he is about to commit further beastly acts, he is saved by her, and saved by the remembrance of the love that he had for her. In an even more modern updating of the Beauty and the Beast story, we can actually see it in some of George Orwell's works. In 1984, arguably this is a Beauty and the Beast idea. We have Winston, who is pretty clueless in his attempts to rebel against Big Brother. That is until he meets Julia. And then he finds more happiness. He finds a reason to stay alive and to live within this regime, but also a much more, I suppose, directed and purposeful rebellion, although I'm not sure that's the best way of putting it. But I think it is really a more structured rebellion once he meets Julia, and they have an objective, they have some regularity, I suppose, in what they're doing. And at that stage, it really starts to accelerate with finding I can't remember what it's called, but like the secret society that's rebelling against Big Brother, or that they believe to exist. Obviously it doesn't, but it all starts when he unites with Julia and they find more structure, more concrete rebellions, although ultimately that is their downfall. And then there's variation of it, because it's important to remember that as much as we have these meta stories and we're looking for the repeating patterns, it's also when there is a subversion or there is a deviation from the specificities of this story, One of those, in a slight way, is within Les Miserables, with Jean Valjean and Cosette. And we see that obviously they have a father and a daughter relationship, but Cosette really tames Valjean. She makes him give up his former life, where he's constantly changing identity, he's never settled in one place. And it's the influence of Cosette, the angelic beauty that he has, which allows him to settle down, allows him to live a normal life. A stronger subversion is one where the roles of the sexes are split, which is a common occurrence in meta stories, and that takes place in The Idiot by Dostoevsky. And we have Prince Mishkin taking the form of Beauty, and I forget the name of the woman. I think it's Natalia or Natasha. And the prince is very willing to save her, but the other subversion is the fact that she doesn't want to be saved. And so ultimately the prince fails, because he wasn't capable to overcome that, she wasn't willing to be saved, and so it ends in tragedy for both of them. Another subversion is within Frankenstein, where Frankenstein's creation does not have a beauty to save him. He is the beast, he is the being that needs to be civilized, but he has no beauty. Victor could have been that. He could have saved him, he could have civilized him, but he didn't. He was also unwilling to create a beauty for his original creation. And so without that, Frankenstein's creation, the beast, was allowed to develop and indulge in his beastly tendencies. And as we can see again, that ended in tragedy. Finally, one of the places it is seen is within the work of Anton Chekhov. And he sort of takes this further and calls it active love, which is essentially the desire to grow together. And that not being perfect going into the relationship isn't a problem. And most directly, it's seen within the institution of marriage. So it's the idea that we have the man, perhaps the wild bachelor, perhaps the bad boy, who's coming, admitting that they're a mess, that they need to settle down, need to change their ways. They are proposing to the woman. So they're making the initial admission that they need to be fixed. The woman then says to them, whether they accept or they do not, they willingly enter into that partnership, also with the assumption that they have the capability to do so. And then you have the union of marriage to create one life which is better than the sum of its parts. And the Beauty and the Beast story can really be seen as an interpretation for the utility of marriage, and one that perhaps predates the idea of marriage itself. So where Cain and Abel offered a warning against resentment and bitterness and where that could lead, Beauty and the Beast present an ideal, perhaps not a universal ideal, but one nevertheless that has persisted for centuries, if not millennia. There is perhaps no certain universal truth or answer, but it certainly is compelling. See you in the next one.